Got that SharePoint data, wanna see it shine. Got your Copilot waiting on that bottom line. Well, let's connect them up fast as you please. Put your studio agent and your data at ease.
One of the asks that I get all the time is for people that want to use a SharePoint list in their Copilot Studio agents. However, as of today, you cannot add a SharePoint list as a knowledge source. I know there's some preview features coming, but nothing is currently working that makes it easy to just add a SharePoint list into a Copilot Studio agent. I know a lot of people like to do things like put them in a Dataverse table or do something else like that, but you can actually easily connect a SharePoint list to a Copilot Studio agent and get some fantastic results. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through and we're going to build on an agent that does just that. So what we're looking at on the screen here is a SharePoint list we have in Protivity's environment. And what we're doing is we are storing a SharePoint list of all of our AI showcase examples that we have, all the collateral we've put together, the accelerators we have, what the industry they're focused on, who's the buyer of it, and who the points of contact are, including any collateral we may have. And so people want to know, what examples do we have? What can you show people that we've done in these scenarios? And of course, people could come here and search the SharePoint list, but they have to go here. They have to filter a query, maybe do SharePoint search, but there's no there's no like reasoning behind it. You have to be like really specific with your searches. It's not the best experience. And so we wanted to create an agent on this information to make it much more powerful for our users. So let's just jump in and let's do that. So I have already created an agent, and in fact, it still says agent 3 because it hasn't refreshed for my name change yet. This is a blank agent. All I did was give it a name and a description. And so the name of the agent is going to be our AI Showcase agent when it finally reloads. So you can see it says AI Showcase agent. The only thing it has is the name and the description. So what we need to do is we need to connect this agent to a SharePoint list, and we need to tell the agent the structure of the SharePoint list, because just using instructions, the agent's going to take the query that a user asks and it's going to convert that into a filter query to query a SharePoint list. Now, for those who are familiar with SharePoint and the way it works with lists, SharePoint queries use internal field names and not the display names when it queries a list. So we need to give the agent all of this information about this list so that it can query it correctly. So what's the easiest and best way to do that? So what we're going to do, instead of having to type out all the list information and try to go through and figure out the internal field names, we're going to hit the easy button and we're going to use REST, and we're going to use Copilot to help us with that. So what I've done is I've executed the SharePoint REST query on our list to give me all the fields in that list. And so all you have to do this is you go to your SharePoint site with the list, or that has your list. Then after the site name and the URL, put in _API web lists get by title, followed by the list name, and then /fields. When you do that and press enter, it's going to spit out what's called XML, but this is all the field information about that list, including the internal field names. And things like Copilot, they can actually understand this. They know about SharePoint. They know about SharePoint lists. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and I've already saved it into a file using Notepad. I just copy and pasted it, and then saved this into a file for to use later. Okay, so copy, paste, store in a file, and then let's jump over into actual Copilot. So this is regular Office chat. This isn't M365 Copilot. If you really wanted to, you could even use something like ChatGPT to do this as well. Probably even, Gemini or anything else. This is not going to be specific to Copilot, but Copilot works great here. And when I'm telling Copilot in our prompt is I'm creating this agent and I need this agent connected to a SharePoint list. And I need the agent to have the instructions to be able to filter this list correctly. And then I'm telling it that I'm going to attach the information about the list that we just extracted and copied from the /fields query. So let's go ahead and upload that file. So this file is that XML that came from that /fields query. And we're saying, hey, Copilot, help us create the instructions for our agent for this. So we're going to send that. It's going to take just a second. Okay, and we can see that it created our instructions for us. And because it knows SharePoint, it knows to use the title field. It knows it's telling it not to filter on description fields because you can't do SharePoint queries against note fields, right? So because it's so smart, because it knows so much about SharePoint, it's helping us, it's helping our agent know what not to query on. Now, I have executed this exact same prompt before, and the instructions did not have that instructions to not try to filter on note fields, and it actually would throw errors for me. So I had to go and put in the instructions to not query on note fields. So if you use this and you don't see this, you might want to add in the instructions to not query on note fields. But go through and look at it. Cursory, it looks nice. Knows how to query on people field as well. Yeah, looks good to go. So we're going to copy this as is into our agent. We're going to edit those instructions and we're going to paste those in there and we're going to save it. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually connect this agent to our SharePoint list. To do that, I'm going to click on Tools and I'm going to add a tool and I'm going to search for SharePoint Get Items. And if you're familiar with Power Automate and the actions in Power Automate, this is our good old SharePoint Get Items actions from Power Automate. We're going to click on Add and Configure. Let's give it a name that's a good name so it knows when to use it. We're going to call this Get Filtered AI Showcase Examples. And it is going to gets AI Showcase Examples from a SharePoint list. Spell things correctly, please. SharePoint list, including buyer description and industry. Under the additional details here, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to just use the maker credentials. That way the user doesn't get prompted to authenticate to the list, because all of our users have access to this list. This is we want people using this list. This is something that's really important to helping people know what we're doing. So now for the site address, we want to put in select our site that has the list. That's going to be our AI Showcase site. And then for the list name, we want to specify the list that we have, and there's our AI Showcase list. Now, finally, we want to add another input, and we want to add the filter query input, because this is what SharePoint or the agent is going to set in order to actually filter the query. So what you should also do with this, though, is give it a really good description to help the agent, again, do a better job at creating these filters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over back into Copilot. I'm going to say, hey, give me a description task for that field. So it's going to go through and spit out a good description for me that's going to give it some information about, again, how to generate those queries. So let's go ahead and copy this. Let's paste it into our description. And let's save it. And that's it. We're good to go. We can actually start talking to this list now and getting information. So I can say, do we have any examples for the health care industry? And you can see here that it is doing our filter query, and it comes back with some great examples, right? So it tells us the description, the point of contact. If we want more information in these results, we could go to the instructions site to return different fields, which you can see it's querying the list for us, giving us back the information we need, right? We can even say now, let's say, do we have any examples that might help with a risk matrix? So what it does, it comes back with some information, which is great. We have a few examples here. But what I want to point out, what it's doing is it's doing a substring for the word risk in the title field. That's not really great. That's a really just hard-coded response, like if you're doing a search within the SharePoint search bar. It's not, there's no context behind it. It's not looking at the description field. It's just looking at that title field. We really want it to be looking at the description field where people asking questions that are more general. Like maybe like, hey, I'm looking, do we have any examples to help our client with a specific need? Their need is blah. We don't want it just looking at that title field. Unfortunately, you can't query against note fields. So what we need to do is we need to figure out a better way of being able to get that information to our agent. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into our flows and we're going to create a flow here. So we're going to click on Get New Agent Flow. And we are going to look for a trigger of agent calls a flow. When the agent calls the flow, and we are going to be executing a SharePoint HTTP call. So what we want to do is we want to send a request to SharePoint because what we want to tell it to do is give us all of the descriptions for all of our examples, and then have the agent reason over all of those descriptions. And that way it can apply context to it. It can apply reasoning to it. It's going to give us much better results. And because our list only has 307 items, we can return that much information to our user, to our agent to be able to work with. So it's not overburdening the agent. So we need to give it a site address. Again, it's going to be our AI Showcase site. We are doing a get method, and now it's asking us for a URI. So that's like, what REST query are we going to execute against our SharePoint site? And I've already got that in my browser URL here because I was playing with it earlier. So we are again going to our SharePoint site. We're using the _ API list get by title, and we're going to tell it we want all the items from our AI Showcase list, but only select the IED, title, and short description fields. If we told it to return every field, that would be too much for our agent, and it would blow up and say it's too much data. We're also telling it to return the top 500 items. So this will return the title, ID, and short description for every single example we have, and now our agent can reason over all those descriptions to find us the best example that might fit somebody's needs. So I'm just going to copy this portion of the URL into our URI. And then I am going to respond back to our agent. Respond to the agent with a response. It'll be a text. We'll just call it response. And we're going to pass in the body that came from that send HTTP request. And now we're going to save that. And let's make sure that we give our flow a name that makes sense. So let's edit that, and we're going to call it get all of the AI showcase examples. And now let's publish it. Let's come back into our agent. Let's go into our tools for that agent. Let's add another tool. We're going to add a flow. And here is our flow we just created. Get all of the AI showcase examples. So let's click on Add and Configure. And the name, get all the AI showcase examples. The description, that works as well because it's pretty self-evident what it does. And let's make sure it's good to go. Looks like it's good. So we've got that in there. It's turned on. Last thing we need to do is we need to tell our agent to use this tool and when to use this tool. So again, let's go back into our instructions, and I'm just going to add a line at the very bottom of my instructions. And I'm going to say, hey, this is critical. If no filter query can be determined or the user is filtering based on the description from the conversation, use the tool. And now let's add our tool, get all showcase examples. So we'll now call that if it can't find the correct filter query. So let's save that. I made it bold to make it say, hey, it's important. You should do it. All right. It's in there. Let's see if it actually works. Let's say, do we have any AI showcase examples to help with a risk matrix? And we can see it's still called the get filtered AI showcase examples. Let's try that again. Get all the AI showcase examples that might help with a risk matrix. So now it's calling get all the AI showcase examples. So, and it's prompting us to allow. So we probably need to tweak those instructions a little bit more so that it hits this all the time. I don't have to be as explicit about all the examples, but we hit it. It's now returning all the items, and now it's giving us more examples of things that might help with a risk matrix. And you saw that was actually a lot faster than the agent that was going before. But there's one here, like the GRC Copilot agent. That one did not show up before because it has nothing about the risk in the name of it. So I can actually now say, I want to know more information about this agent. So give me more details about the GRC Copilot agent. And this time it called the get filtered AI showcase examples with the correct substring. And there is the information about that agent. It's even got a link to a demo for that one. So you can see here, we can connect a SharePoint list up to an agent. We can query it with filters, and we can also have it return lots of data, a subset of like the description, not the entire list, and then reason over the responses that come back from this. Pretty quick, pretty powerful. I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.